Okay, now that we know how to record into a buffer, let's get crazy with it. Create an easy DAC, and I'm just going to do live.gain direct into there. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play around with something that you have not seen yet, which is called Polybuffer. Polybuffer is buffer on steroids. This thing is crazy. It is fun, and you're going to love it. I'm going to give it a name of drum set, if I can spell. That tends to help. And now I need to have it read stuff into that polybuffer. I've got my folder of drum sounds over here, and they're, hi-hat, kick, snare, yeah, basic stuff. Going to give it a message of read folder, and then because it's just passing the variable through and it's only going to be one variable, $1. If I was doing multiple variables, I might have to do $2 or 3. Then here's the cool part. I'm going to use an object called drop file, and that creates a drop file thing that I'm going to connect to the read folder. So here, if I take my drum folder and drag it, you can see that it highlights, says, hey, I'm going to accept that. Drop it in, read folder, and it gives me read folder Macintosh HD users / my username desktop drums, which is now in Polybuffer. This has created a set of different samples within Polybuffer. I can take a look at them. It's giving me their duration, number of channels, the sample rate, all that good, wholesome stuff. With that, I can play around with those samples. I have to send them a message that tells Polybuffer which one to play. And this is going to be a little bit complicated, so bear with me. We're going to start off with a key up object, and I'm going to connect that to select. I'm going to do spacebar, so 32. Then I'm going to use 1 through 4 on the keyboard, which is 49, 50, 51, and 52. Going to have a bang. Then I'm going to have messages of 1, because that's going to be Polybuffer index 1, followed by 2. If I can connect to the right inlet. It has been a long day. Then I'm going to change this to 3 and this to 4. Cool. All right. Here is what is going to get fun. We're going to use some objects. We've talked about these in class, but we haven't really done anything with them here. We're going to use random. 4. Random, every time it's banged, generates a number of 0 to 1 less than whatever its argument is. So I'm going to do +1 because I don't have any, sample zeros or anything like that. And then we can, let's play around with random for a second and see what we get. Here's an int box. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it's just a random order. That's what I want. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to move that over. Okay. Next, I'm going to connect this to some other stuff. Specifically, what I'm going to connect it to is going to be a really kind of complicated line here. And that is combine, then drum set, which is the name of my Polybuffer, dot space I at, for attributes, triggers 1. What the what? Well, what I've done is going to come out here, and I'm going to show it to you in this message, which is about to get really big. Drumset.1. drum set.4, drum set.4.1.2.4.1, where's 3? Thank you. What it's doing is combine is a really cool object for when you need to combine and concatenate different strings. It combines multiple items into a single symbol. So if you're looking for, say, a specific folder on a drive, you can combine that together. It's way easier to use than the dreaded sprintf command, which, if you have to use it, my condolences. Been there, done that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that to select the index number within Polybuffer, so drumset.index of the samples. So I've got drumset.1 is hi-hat 1, drumset.2 is hi-hat 2, drumset.3 is the kick, and drumset.4 is the snare. Knowing that, I can have some fun with this. So now I'm going to pass some messages out. I'm going to pass the message set with $1. This will give me a new message that is set drumset dot whatever it reads in here, drumset dot 1 2 3 4. That is going to go to an object that we will be looking at a lot in class. Not necessarily this week, just be prepared. It's going to come up a lot. And that object is called Groove. And Groove is amazing because what Groove does is it's a variable rate looping sample player. You give Groove a value, you give it the argument of what you want it to play, it plays it. But you have to drive it with a SIG. Remember back when we talked about oscillators that I told you you would need to know SIG? This is when you need to know SIG. Let me show you how it works. So I'm going to give Groove an argument, and it's going to say set instead of drum set. It's going to say drumset.1. Okay, cool. Let's connect it. And then let's test that by giving it a SIG. And we're going to give it a toggle, which will be a 0 or a 1. Okay, so I can monitor what's coming out of here as well and see what that's doing. But there's nothing coming out. I have to reset Groove effectively every time. So this is going to get a little complicated, but check this. We've got Groove over here. It's going into the drum set. It's getting set drum set 2. Three and 4. Now, what I want to do is to trigger forward play, and I'm going to do that by creating a message of 1, and this has to come every single time I play it. So now if I trigger forward play, good. But that is a huge, huge pain to have to trigger this and then that at the same time. It's pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a couple of objects that will help with this. Specifically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a object called delay, or del. I'm going to give it 2 milliseconds. The reason I'm doing that is that I'm going to connect del to every one of those values coming out of the select. So we'll move this over. I'm going to move this up just so it's easier to see. And you know what? We're going to kind of clean up these patch cords a little bit. There we go. All right, next, del is going to hit that, and it's going to hit that. So now, You're probably noticing I have to click twice to get this guy on and off. That's a problem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use another delay. These are all drum hits. They're super, super, super fast. They're transients primarily. It does not matter what the length is, or so I'm telling myself, because what I'm going to do is send delay into another delay, and that delay will turn off the toggle after 100 milliseconds. So I am grooving. I've got everything going into the delay. The delay triggers play forward. It also triggers SIG to play with a message of 1, so it's playing forward at normal speed. Then after that has happened, 2 milliseconds later, it sends 100 milliseconds later, it sends another bang to the toggle, which turns off SIG by sending a value of 0. So the signal is, DC 0. This allows me to really, change up what's in groove. I can hit spacebar. For my random values, I can use 1, 2, 3, 4 to get specific values. I have created a Polybuffer based sample board.